inside, you want to burn it all down. You want to start your Real Me Recovery Witness Protection Program. New name, new city, red hair, no forwarding address. You know who you are. Hey there. Welcome to the Free Genies Project, a space where transformation is about becoming, not performing. Because self-development isn't about fixing yourself. It's about freeing yourself. Freeing yourself from expectations that don't fit, from stories that were never yours to carry, from rules that keep you from living fully, unapologetically like yourself. Each week, you'll hear real conversations, practical tools, and unfiltered truths, all designed to make self-growth feel natural and not like another impossible standard. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a movement, a space where we stop waiting for permission and start living life our way. So, why wait for 3 wishes when you can start freeing your genie one step at a time? Let's go. Let's just name it. Most of us didn't grow up being told, just be yourself and the world will celebrate it. In fact, what a lot of us did hear growing up were things like, you can be whatever you want as long as it pays the bills. Speak your mind, but don't talk back to your elders. Be confident, but not too cocky. Explore who you are, but don't be too sexual, too loud, too weird, because no one is ever going to want that. And this is not always because our caregivers are mean or didn't love us. Most of the times, actually, it was quite the opposite. For them, love meant protection, and protection meant preparation. They were setting us up to be safer, chosen, respected. In reality, all that they were trying to do was to pass down what worked for them or what they wished they'd known earlier in order to make it in the world. But when love comes wrapped in conditions, even the kindest, most well-meaning ones, we end up internalizing a different message. We internalize that freedom has limits, authenticity has limits, curiosity has limits. Basically, you can explore almost everything, be almost yourself, but only within the boundaries and confines of what's considered acceptable. And whether that looked like straightening your hair, adjusting your tone, or covering your tattoos, even staying quiet when something didn't feel right, it was all part of the same survival strategy. And this applies to everyone, but especially for women, for queer folks, for people of colors, and folks with disabilities. Anyone on the margins, really, because conforming equals belonging, and belonging equals safety. And we've been taught to equate safety with love. So in this journey, we have actually learned how to shrink, how to smooth our edges, how to self-edit, and not because we were fake, but because it has helped us survive. And I've seen this show up in my life so many times. But for the sake of time and just to keep this rambly brain of mine in check, I'm going to share just one story with you. So back in the day in university, I was studying something a little more practical. At least I thought. I went to school for hospitality management, but what I really wanted to do was to act. So it almost felt like I started living a double life, because while I was doing my get a job that pays career, I was also applying to art school. And, it started quietly. I worked on my application, my headshots, everything. And the day I was supposed to go submit all this stuff back home in Venezuela, I was with my best friend and I was leaving my house, and the bus that I was on with my friend got robbed. They took my beautiful Disney Tinkerbell tote bag. I remember it was like blue and pink. And in that tote bag, they had my binder, they had my transcripts. I mean, long story short, I never ended up signing up for the classes. And I ended up leaving the country. And for a long time after that, I ended up burying that version of me, that version that almost did the brave thing and almost chose to go for what she wanted. But looking back right now, really makes me reflect on the fact that I didn't lose her and that tug of the heart to do what I wanted to do did not get lost. It was just one sign in the beginning of something that I would come to do later. At that point, that version of me that wanted to be aligned with my heart was a little early, was trying, and she had a lot of socio-political backgrounds against her. And now I look back at her and I can thank her, because that first experience of saying, I'm gonna go and do both, is what has opened the door for me to listen to her more and more, and slowly but surely leaning more away from doing both the conditioned belief and my heart aligned desire, and leaning more and more towards the heart aligned desire. And I know I'm not the only one with a story like that. So, what happens when we grow into these beliefs? The main thing that happens is that we really do become the best, worst self editors. Because we at this point are not just trying to write our story. We are the pen, we are the paper, we are the damn eraser, we are rewriting the messy parts, and we're learning to be likable even before we learn how to be real. That's what happens when we take this things that are passed on to us and don't really question them. So before we continue, I want to do a little gut check with you all, and I want to ask you to reflect or to answer from your heart. Where are you still editing yourself to be accepted? Just let that question and whatever comes up as you ask yourself that question, be present with yourself as we move through this episode. Because the thing is, this is not something we are able to leave behind easily. In fact, most of us are still building our lives on top of that edited version of self. So when we finally feel the inner tug, that longing to get real, to get raw, it's not usually warm and fuzzy. It's not a warm and fuzzy homecoming. It feels like this. Because we're not just reconnecting, we are peeling back years of adaptation while we're trying to listen to the voice of our hearts, which often speaks a language we haven't even learned yet. And that's the space that many of us are walking into these days, where the facade is crackling, when we're beginning to question things, but the realness of it still feels scary as fuck. Because when we've never truly tapped into ourselves, then how the hell do we even know what that looks and feels like? Makes total sense to me that it's scary and overwhelming. So, what does it actually look like to get real? I'm still trying to figure out that in real time. But what I've started noticing, not only in myself through all of these stories of heart versus beliefs that have been conditioned, but also in my coaching clients and in those long-winded voice notes with friends and loved ones, is that for most of us, this getting real thing doesn't start with a cinematic heavenly awakening. It usually actually starts with a crack in your system. Sometimes it's a subtle, you're stuck, you feel numb, you start spiraling more often, and sometimes it's louder. Anxiety starts hitting, depression sinks in, the burnout is burning. And it's not always this feeling of my whole life is in shambles. Usually there's a detonator area, something that opens the portal of getting real. Sometimes it's the job, sometimes the relationship, the routine, the people-pleasing masks. The point is that there's usually a detonator area in your life that makes the journey begin. It begins with that tiny little voice inside your head that begins whispering, wait, do I even like this? Is this my dream or is this someone else's thing? Why do I feel numb even when I'm doing everything right? Why am I still in this relationship if I know this person and I have nothing in common? That little voice is basically an encounter with a glitch in the matrix that starts our journey back to ourselves. And I'm not saying this is how it goes for everybody, but more often than not, what comes next, what comes after this glitch, looks a little something like what I like to call the authenticity curve. And mind you, this is not a formula or a statistically significant research-backed pyramid a la Maslow. This is just a pattern that I've seen play out in different shapes, at different speed, in different people, but always pointing towards the same invitation. The invitation to stop performing and start coming home to ourselves. So let's break this authenticity curve down. Phase one of the authenticity curve is, ironically enough, where we master the mold. We learn these rules early, whether they're spoken out loud or absorbed through looks, silences, or the way that people react to us just being. This is where you learn things like be agreeable but think critically, be ambitious but not too much, be talented but humble, sexy but not a slut, be confident but don't make anyone uncomfortable. And now you start scanning the room before you speak. You code switch without realizing it, reading the air, translating the subtext, anticipating which version of yourself will feel safest, most lovable, most rewarded. And if you're good at it, you start freaking winning. You get the job, the degree, the partner. You tick all the check boxes on the grown-up game of life. Don't get me wrong. It's not that all of this is fake. You don't have to throw all of that away, right? When you decide to figure out what's behind the conditioning. There's truth in there. Your laugh, your skills, your magic. But they're wrapped in layers of what we'll just call the respectability armor. The real you is in there, but they've been playing a role. And it shows up like theater you can feel in your body. You're ready for your lines, but you're also the director all the time, even when you're alone. That overthinking spiral that you get when you get home, that's rehearsal. Not knowing what you want to do for fun anymore, you're stuck in character. And the crazy thing is that it works. It gets you places until it doesn't. Because even the most successful performance eventually starts to wear out. And you can feel that gap, that quiet ache between the life you're living, between what you've been taught, and the life you can feel calling you. Even if you can't name it yet exactly what the calling is for, it's there and you feel it and it aches and it's like, So let's just say one day that armor cracks. Not because you want it to, but because it gets too damn uncomfortable to wear. You may notice it one day while you're sitting at a team meeting at work, nodding along, but you're not even in your body. Or when you're looking at the person you've been with for years, the one who's technically a good partner, and your chest feels like it's caving in and you don't know why. You may not quite know what the next step is, but your soul is screaming, I cannot keep doing this. I can't keep pretending I can't shrink anymore. This is phase two. This is the burning it down phase. This is the phase where everything that once felt like the path, the job title, the 5-year plan, all of that starts to feel like someone else's life. You start questioning not only the curated and socialized parts of you, you start questioning the hard things that you have gone through that made you resilient, like the bullying you endured in high school that helped you shape your boundaries, or having to start over in a new country and learning a system so well and so fast that it became your badge of honor, or becoming emotionally self-sufficient at 10 because your parents were struggling too hard to notice. And now you're asking, did I really have to go through all of that? Or did I just never had permission to be soft and be and exist? Did I build strength? Or did I just move through it because I fucking had to? And that grief, that anger, it lights a little rebellious fire under your butt. Not a destructive fire, although it can feel very much like chaos, but it's more like a clarifying fire, a cleansing fire, a fire that says, I want to know who I am under all of this. And if we're being honest, inside, you want to burn it all down. You want to start your Real Me Recovery Witness Protection Program. New name, new city, red hair, no forwarding address. You know who you are. But the truth, you don't actually disappear. You start making quiet exits from rules you never agreed to, from performances that don't serve you anymore, from old versions of yourself. So what's one version of you that you are quietly outgrowing right now? At this point, you just start seeing things differently. The job you once thought was your dream might still be a part of your purpose, but not if it keeps compromising your values and your well-being. That relationship you're in might not need to end, but maybe it needs a new dynamic in order to keep going. And that version of yourself that learned all of these patterns, she's not irrelevant. She's part of your story and your becoming. She's coming with you into that future version of you. The difference is that she's just not in charge anymore. You tell her what she's bringing in her carry-on. Which is why, at this point of the journey, you don't just unlearn things. Because unlearning would be really dumb from a survival standpoint. What if we need that adaptation again someday? Because these old instincts, they just don't vanish. They live in our body like echoes, and some days they'll try to steer you even when you know better. What we do instead is we rewire, we reinterpret, we say to that part, thank you for keeping me safe, but I don't need to live by those rules anymore. We learn how to hold the memory without letting it steer the ship. You may ghost a few things, a few people, sometimes jobs, sometimes parts of your old self. And from the outside, this phase might look impulsive AF. But it is rarely random. This burn, it's been building for fucking years. You've just stopped pretending you don't smell the smoke anymore. And if you've been through this, you know. This phase is disorienting as hell. Because when your identity has been built on being the good one, the smart one, the strong one, the chill one, the don't make it weird one, insert whatever your one label is here, stepping out of that feels like social death. You start asking yourself, if I'm not this, then who am I? What if this version of me, the raw one, the angry one, the uncertain one, the fuck this shit, I'm starting a commune one, doesn't get chosen? That fear is legit. Because let's not forget that we learn to conform, belong, and be safe for a reason. And the risk of shedding those identities isn't small at all. But, and this is the part that actually gives me hope about all of this, What if everyone is wearing some version of their respectability armor? Then maybe, just maybe, there are people out there whose real selves would resonate with your real self. And imagine what could happen. Imagine how full your freaking amazing heart will feel if your friendships, your work, your love life were rooted in you actually being you. Not the polished version, not the marketable version, but the one that moves with and from intention instead of survival. You know, the you that doesn't follow a brand style guide approved by legal or society or your mom or your last situationship. The you that fucking breathes. You know, maybe, just maybe, there's a deeper self waiting on the other side. It might not be the most predictable or the most perfect, but it's the most honest and the youest you there could be. And that one, that version of you, it's actually the most magnetic to the life that you want and the people who would actually cheer, support, and love you on the journey to building that version of life that you want. And once that burn everything down fire cools down, you're not scorched. You're standing in something softer, something unfamiliar, something real. It's almost like when Daenerys burnt everything to the ground and she realized that she was the dragon and everything else burnt, but there she was, standing without a scratch on. That's what happens in this space. But that journey is not linear, and it's definitely not instant or magic. So let's talk about what happens next. You've started shedding the masks. You've questioned the path. You've stopped dismissing the fire. And now you're somewhere in the middle. You're not who you used to be, but you're not quite sure who you're becoming either. Or maybe you do know where you're headed, but you're not there yet. And it feels like you are, once again, trying to figure out what's the deal now. This phase is your second or third or fourth or fifth adolescence. It's puberty minus the braces plus some rent and responsibilities. At this point, you're really not trying to figure out what's cool anymore. You're trying to figure out what's true. You're still adulting. You're still showing up to the meetings, still making dinner and sending emails and returning texts. But something's shifted. Maybe you're pushing the dress code just enough to feel like you. Maybe you're dropping little breadcrumbs in conversations just to see if anybody else might vibe with the real you underneath the polish. It feels free and new and exhausting and exhilarating and deeply uncertain all at once. You'll start spiraling one minute, saying things like, I should be doing more, I should have everything figured out by now, maybe I was just being dramatic. And 5 minutes later, you're like the most solution-oriented person ever. You know, you're Googling therapist recommendations, updating your resume, writing a note in your phone titled, What my dream life would look like if I had unlimited courage and no bills. This is the season of having one foot in and one foot out. So let's try this together. Name your 1 foot in and your 1 foot out right now. Because just saying it out loud can bring a little clarity and relief to our hearts and our bodies. This is the season where you hold down the job while you build the exit plan, where you pay the bills while experimenting with the things that you actually love, where you say, yeah, I'm still figuring things out, and actually mean it in a million different ways. This phase is messy, it's tender, and super powerful. This is where your nervous system slowly catches up to your mind. This is where your mind slows down long enough to let your body speak. And your heart, your soul gets loud enough for your mind to actually have to give a shit. This is the moment when you start noticing what actually feels good, what drains you without reason, what your yes feels like in your chest, and what your no tastes like when you finally say it out loud without shame. This is the phase where you start building a beautiful relationship with your intuition, not just your image. You ask yourself, what's actually mine? What did I pick up just to be accepted? What do I want now when nobody is watching? So, just to bring this phase in, I want you to have the opportunity to ask yourself, what is something you do only when no one is around, but makes you feel the most like you? Just sit with it for a second. What is that thing you only do when nobody is around, but makes you feel the most like you? Some days things will click. Some days you're going to feel like a blooming, glowing, soft lit version of your higher self. And other days you'll be back in bed wondering what the reason even is. And that's okay, you know? This isn't about becoming your final form. Like, this isn't Sailor Moon or the Princess Diaries. Like, we will not see a transformation montage here. This is about staying in motion without abandoning your center. This is about being in constant progress without shame. It's about letting yourself be a blurry, honest, heart-led draft of someone who is authentically yours and authentically you. Because in this space, you're not just exploring, you are reclaiming your MNF power. The power to choose, to create, to try again, to wear what you want and say what you mean and rest without asking and experimenting without explaining. This space is where your real self starts walking into the room. This is where you finally say, I can be who I am, and the right people, they'll celebrate it. And once you've felt that kind of freedom, you can't unfucking know it. You can't go back, because now the question changes. Now you're not asking, am I allowed to be this version of me? You're asking, what kind of world do I want to build around my version of me? This is phase 4 of the authenticity curve. And this is where the power flips, because now you're the one curating. You're not erasing the parts of you that feel too much, too weird, too loud. You're looking at the world you were taught to belong to and asking, does this even deserve all of me? And when the answer is no, you get to revise the terms. This is the edit where you're not trimming from your edges to fit the format. You are redesigning the fucking format itself. And maybe that means feeling confident enough in your skills at work to wear what makes you feel powerful, even if it doesn't scream executive presence or even if it doesn't fit what everybody else wears. It might mean setting boundaries that actually protect your wellness and not just your productivity or other people's feelings. It might mean dating people who see your ambition, your softness, your weird tangents, and want and support all of it. It might mean choosing clients, collaborators, and communities that match your values instead of your resume. This phase is not about rebelling for rebellion's sake. We're out of the second adolescence and acting more like we're in our 60s now. We know what we're about, and that is enough. Oh, that sounds so weird, but it's so true. At this stage, we are aligned, we are intentional, and we are designing a life that reflects our real self. And so, yes, at this point, we are still editing. You are editing, but now it's sacred. Now this editing is for you. You get to choose what stays, what shifts, what was survival, and what's still true to you. You get to honor who you were without keeping every single line. Because the goal here isn't to erase the past, it's to integrate it into a version that serves us. It's to say, I am made of every version I've been, and now I choose how that story continues. This edit, it's not just for the version of you right now. It's also for that little version of you who was told to dim their fucking light, to tone it down, to be sweet, to be safe, to be silent, to be palatable. This edit is for the kid in you who shaved off parts of themselves just to make it through school, or family dinner, or church, or a boardroom. This is for your inner child, and your actual child if you choose to have one. This is for the nieces and nephews, the god kids, the students, the future badasses that we haven't met yet. This is so they can see what's possible, so they can start from truth and not survival. This is so that they can inherit something different. Because, I mean, we're probably still gonna fuck them up a little bit. But we're not gonna fuck them up with the same things that we got fucked up with. Not with the belief that they have to hide to be loved, that they have to perform to be safe, or that they have to earn their freaking worth. Fuck no. No, no, no. We are gonna rewrite that story right now. With every choice, with every boundary, every time we show up fully as ourselves, we heal us, we heal the future, we heal our people. And so I just have one more small prompt for you to reflect and carry. And that is an invitation to ask you, what is one way you can show up 5% more real this week? And just pick one moment, one choice, one action to do with your whole heart. Not for it to be perfect, just for it to be a little bit more you. Because we don't do this work to become perfect. We do it to become real. Because being you, that's not just your superpower, it's your freaking legacy. And yeah, it might just be your most radical act of care and resistance. Bye. As always, take what you need, leave what you don't, and make this journey entirely yours. If something in this episode resonated, please let me know. Leave a review, share your thoughts in the comments, or DM me over at the Free Genies Project on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, adios.